Welcome to the muted cast. We're all muted. You can't hear
No,
us.
you can hear us. Hi, welcome to Roundabout Cast episode 18, I think.
We're legal now.
Yeah, we're legal for adultery things. I'm your podcast host, Willer.
I am Bradley, one of the 7 warlords of the Roundabout cast.
Hi, I'm Joe. First lieutenant trombone player, fourth from the left.
It's very prestigious.
Joe, you could have easily gone something One Piece related, like you
Oh,
know.
no, I like Joe's better.
Okay, yep.
I
I,
thought the one.
I see Joe every time he plays. It's great. Um, Hi. Yeah. Let's get into it this week. We got a lot to talk about. It's gonna be an exciting week. Bradley's actually gonna lead us off with little something from his childhood cartoon wheelhouse.
Yeah, it is a show called Miraculous Ladybug, which I'm not sure when it first started coming out. I think maybe around like 2015 or something. Um, and the reason I the reason I know about this show is one day on Netflix, my roommates and I in college were just like, what if we watch this show? And then we watched the first episode, and then like 12 hours later, we had watched like all of the 2 seasons that were available, and we're like, holy shit, that was actually really good. And I found out that it's much less of a niche thing than I thought it would be. It has a pretty huge following online as of right now, and so essentially what it is, I guess you would call it a superhero romantic comedy,
Huh.
and it's a really interesting dynamic where there are 2 school students, Marinette and Adrian, and these 2 students also happen to be superheroes, Ladybug and Cat Noir. And the interesting dynamic for the show comes from the fact that, first of all, neither of these 2 know their secret identities. So they don't know that they go to school together or anything like that. So Marinette, in her civilian identity, is in love with Adrian, the civilian identity. But whenever they're superheroes, Cat Noir, which is Adrian as a superhero, is in love with Ladybug, which is Marinette as a superhero. Um, and so it's funny because whenever they're at school, Marinette is fawning over Adrian. But whenever she is Ladybug, the superhero, she thinks Cat Noir is like a huge dweeb. She hates him. He's annoying. Um, and then on the other way around, Adrian just thinks of Marinette like, oh, she's just such a good friend. I love her friendship. Um, and so the show is very,
So hold on. She likes him, but he's friend zoning her.
yeah.
Interesting.
But then whenever they're in their superhero identities, it's the other way around.
Cool.
And the show's very lighthearted. And one thing I really appreciate is that basically when choosing powers for the villains that they go up against, they try to prioritize creating situations that will give you either really romantic moments or just really awkward moments between the 2 because they're the focus of the show. Like I guess like a really obvious example would be one where the villain makes people evil, and to make them not evil anymore, they have to have like a true love's kiss. So one of the 2 gets evil, and then they have their first kiss in the show, which at that moment you're like, holy shit. Um, it really is a show that just kind of makes you freak out if you're into
Is
romantic stories like
is
that.
one of
Like
the
an actual kids show, because this seems like more like teen drama kind of things.
I think the show is obviously targeted toward younger kids, but
Really?
I think the show's obviously targeted toward kids, but I've never met a kid who knows the show exists, and I know a ton of adults who watch it.
Do they ever do a scenario where it's like, "Oh, help me, cat boy, I'm in bondage. You gotta like break me out."
The show is not. It doesn't do the Totally Spies thing.
Okay.
Growing fetish in young people.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
The thing I think the thing that most impresses me is about the show is that there's kind of this principle of writing superhero stories that I heard from I think it was some interview of the writers of kind of the first wave of MCU movies where they said they think what was giving their movies more success than maybe other superhero movies at the time or before that was that when you're writing a superhero story, you should try to use superheroes as a setting rather than a genre.
Hmm.
And like I would consider superhero a genre, but you want to write your story as if the genre is not just superhero and nothing else.
That's ironic because so many MCU movies are genre movies, and then you get like your occasional like Winter Soldier that's
Yeah,
kind of like deviating.
and I think that was kind of their philosophy more towards the earlier parts of the MCU, where I think like specific examples he cited was like for Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, they specifically took inspiration from like famous space operas. Um, and so I think that kind of philosophy is like most apparent in Ladybug, where it is first and foremost a romantic comedy, and a lot of the situations and character beats they do could still be done if like superheroes and supervillains were not even on the table. I think it's done really well, and I guess aside from that, it's just also a really fun blend where of like superheroes and the magical girl genre because it's obviously inspired by Sailor Moon. They have the transformation sequences and they
I,
have their
I
little
was
animal familiars.
I was about to say, like, I feel like the relationship between the Cat Noir and Miraculous Ladybug is just Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon.
It's very similar. But yeah, I think it's a really fun show for if you like that kind of thing. But I mean, I wouldn't probably recommend it to either of you two. But I don't know. I enjoy it.
Mhm.
That is Miraculous Ladybug.
So my question is, what's the animation quality of? Because it doesn't look that fantastic from what I've seen.
Yeah. So for people who haven't seen it, it's a 3D animated show. Which when I first saw it, I was immediately put in mind of like, oh, 3D animated shows like Jimmy Neutron. They kind of look shitty. And I will say, season one of this show, I don't think it looks that great. I do think it is probably the best looking 3D animated show I may have seen. I don't know if I've seen that many. It doesn't look that great season one. Season two and three, it looks really awesome. They try to do more creative things with the animation. I think it looks pretty good.
You heard it here first. This show looks better than Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
That's the thing is I ashamedly never watched it. So
I have a couple of questions. How old is Ladybug and Cat Lad? Or
I
how old
think as
are
of
they?
right now they're both 16. So
Okay.
I think it definitely is like a younger kid to teen show.
Okay.
Is this one French, by the way? Because do you know,
Yes.
Bradley? Is it a
It is
French
a
show?
it is a French show, which by the way, I found out that the French actually make bomb ass cartoons.
What's another French bomb ass cartoon?
Let's look at some French cartoons. I saw clips of like another one on YouTube, and I was like, wow, they have some good animation. Let's see.
Um, I have a secondary question.
Okay.
Where does this air? Is it a Netflix exclusive, or is it like on Cartoon Network and then it's on Netflix as well? Or
In America, it's exclusively on Netflix.
interesting, unique
Yeah,
little show here.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it. I probably wouldn't recommend it to you guys because it's definitely it is a very just like bubbly, extremely happy, very cute show.
Let's say what it is. This is Bradley bait, like
Yeah,
straight
it is.
up. It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean
superheroes and cute girls.
it's a comedic superhero comedy. I don't know. I just love it.
Now, is this the opposite of Worm? Is this Nego Worm?
Um, I just don't think it. I wouldn't say it's similar or opposite. I just think it's not even the same thing.
Man, see, I think my whole life, superheroes is a really lame setting for me. Like, Worm started off at like a -2, and it had to work its way up.
Yeah.
That's where we're sitting at, and the MCU is its special thing because it just does things a little
Willard
different.
doesn't like the guys with powers wearing funny costumes. He likes JoJo's where people wear
Funny
funny
costumes,
costumes and have powers.
but then they're like archaeologists and students and
Well,
Jotaro.
superheroes are that too.
Superheroes are that too.
No, they're not. They're fucking lame as shit.
He's just a weeb. He likes the Japanese
I'm
ones.
not a weeb.
He likes the Japanese ones.
I'm not a weeb. Comics are bad, and you guys know this. They're written by like 70 people, and they have the dumbest plot lines.
They're not
But he
really
likes the Japanese.
written by like 1 or 2 people with 70 people editing them.
Whatever. You know. There's a comic where fucking the Punisher changes body with Luke Cage, and then he's like, "Oh, this is what it's like to be black." And that's the comic, and it goes weird places. And I'm not. That's a real thing. So just next time,
I'm
you're
not. But Lolis, Willer. That's
yeah,
my.
You know what? That's a excellent counter argument.
Anyway, Miraculous Ladybug, I really like it.
Good shit.
That's it.
Watch it. Watch it on Netflix.
Go.
Let's go. Talk about
Cooler.
Monster Hunter Iceborne.
Oh shit.
Joe,
Yeah.
talk good things to me.
Brachydios,
Oh,
Bonbaros,
keep going,
Beotodon,
baby.
Nagakuga,
Oh,
Baroth.
oh,
We're on Volcano right now. I can't remember.
oh. Clutch Claw.
So yeah,
Um,
Iceborne came out. Willer and I are big Monster Hunter boys, especially Monster Hunter World. Willer has like 220 hours, 230, probably more now.
I'm at 270, dude.
Or yeah, whatever. I'm probably at like 200 or something like that.
Which is still baby numbers compared to like the 1,500 people I see on the subreddit.
But those people, yeah, they're just better.
Yeah, they're kind of bitching.
Every time. But yeah, we've been playing it for the past weekend and few days. We'll go on and off. I would consider us pretty decently good at the game, considering that we were able to do in-game stuff. Not easily, but we were able to do it.
I feel like while we were in the first like few days there, we were ahead of the pack. Yeah, I'd say me and Joe definitely like we know the mechanics, we know the fights. Not quite good enough to do all the arch-tempers though. I missed a few, but like yeah, we're doing pretty good. But when we got to the Master Rank expansion, as you can tell by our hour count, I think we're just good because we know the game and we know the movesets. Because armor-wise, I feel like we're behind a lot of the people who grinded like the 1,000 hours in the post game. They have every gem. They have all these augmented weapons. I felt like me and Joe were just the kind of people who would play a lot when events came around and then move on to other games, but always come back to our...
I think we also just really like conquering the mountain, never doing the mountain again and again and again.
Yeah.
With the exception of Nergigante, my boy. Oh,
My boy.
But yeah, so no, Iceborne came out. It's added a lot of previous, well-known monsters from Monster Hunter, and like it's kind of funny because I can immediately tell because I played Try. I think I got to like really like to the end of low rank in Try, and then I've been playing Generations more, so I really didn't get to like play the big like heavy hitter monsters that everyone loves. But like after playing them, I can already tell why people love them so much.
Yeah, for me, I've played every monster in the expansion because I played a lot of 4 and Generations, but I was never the person to get into G rank into those. But now that me and Joe are in G rank, or Master Rank as it's called this time, it's just so fun. All the variants are super cool. All the old monsters have a new like little flair to them. And just putting it in the world engine where you can control your characters well, where there's so many quality of life changes, where all the weapons have expanded move sets. It's just...
No need for 30 whetstones.
It's so good. No pickaxes around.
Oh, God. It's one thing about Generations that gives me gripes. But yeah, no, but like overall, it's just more Monster Hunter.
But it's really good, Monster Hunter. The new map is really good. The new hub world's really good. A lot of quality of life changes, mechanical changes to every weapon. Everyone has access to this slinger, like clutch claw thing that lets you grab onto monsters and slam them into walls or weaken their body parts to do more damage.
Yeah, it's like uh, I mean, yeah, it's we're having a great time with it. And if you don't know what Monster Hunter is, because I don't think we ever actually talked about what Monster Hunter is on the
We
podcast.
have not.
Yeah, so Monster Hunter is the quintessential fishing game, which means nothing to y'all, but everything to me. Uh, but basically, the
Explain.
yeah. So basically, the fundamental loop of Monster Hunter is you want to get better armor. To do that, you have to figure out which monster you want to hunt. And to do that, to hunt that monster, you need to figure out its weaknesses and its vulnerabilities and strengths.
And its moveset, most importantly. Each one
Its
has its
movesets.
patterns that you gotta learn.
So before you go out and hunt a monster, you have to prepare a lot to go hunt a monster, especially in this like Master Rank G rank. Like Will and I spent like 40 minutes preparing for one monster because he had knocked us out like 2 or 3 times. We're like,
Yeah.
all right, we need to really think this through and think about our strategy.
And then it happened again with the next monster, basically.
Yeah. And so it's a great loop of just preparation, doing, and then like seeing the results. And Monster Hunter is able to have that and has that in so many different layers. Where during the fight itself, you're realizing what the monster is doing and how you need to change your attacks and movesets based on the weapon you have. And then meanwhile, you're in the hub world, you're thinking about like what I need to do to prepare for the next monster I'm going to fight. And then the bigger scale of that is thinking like, here's what I want to make. Here are the monsters I need to fight. How do I want to tackle this like roadmap of getting to what I want ultimately? And then bigger map of like, here's the big challenging thing that's in front of me. What do I need to tackle that? So it's just this layered cake of preparation that you have to constantly do, and I love it so much
Such
because
a delicious cake.
yes, because everything you do matters so much, and especially in the expansion, they took a lot of mechanics they weren't using
Mm-hmm.
as much before, and have really emphasized this. Like there were no water monsters really in base world. I think there was only one,
There was only one.
and so they've added like 2 more. We haven't found the other one yet, but already the one that you fight that's near the beginning, Coral Pookie Pookie, like immediately are just like, I have to take the waterproof mantle. I have to be prepared for water attacks because he just zones you out with all his water moves, and you have to really prepare for it.
It's really nice because, again, me and Joe didn't grind super hard, so we have, like, all this high level armor, but we don't have everything. So we really do have to strategize because we can't, statistically speaking, we are even to the monsters we're fighting. And I feel like we took a very good path to get here. Like, we played the perfect amount to be having, like, a really good experience right now.
Yeah.
Another example is there was one monster that inflicted sleep in the game, but it was like such a secondary mechanic of that monster. They introduced a new monster, which is a variant of an old monster called Nightshade Palomalu, where he's constantly dropping this gas of sleep, and he's using his tail to disperse the sleep clouds, and then his lungs to pull them back in. So he's just manipulating the gas. And if he puts you to sleep, if you're in that gas for just a little bit, you're already going to be put to sleep. He one-shots you. And the first time we fought him, we were just taken aback. We got massacred.
We walked because we had seen him in like previous like files, and like I guess I wasn't really paying attention, but like he looked like a poison dart frog or something based off his skin. So I'm like, oh, he's a poison type monster. I'll take some poison decorations and prepare for that and bring some antidotes, and I should be good to go. And I walked in and I watched the entire cutscene. I was like, oh, he's putting me to sleep. Oh no.
We completely misequipped ourselves for this fight. We got wrecked, and then we put on our sleep jewels because we happened to have them through our previous gameplay, and then we destroyed him.
Yes.
But then you have monsters like Barrieth, who's just this nice wall in kind of the mid-beginning of Master Rank, where he's just aggressive, high damage, strong like tail swipes, jumping off the wall, shooting like hurricanes from his mouth, and you just really have to. The way we beat him wasn't even skill based, like the skills you bring into the fight. It was combat based, to where we realized that breaking his wings nerfed one of his moves, and made a big opening that we could actually hit him because he moved around a lot. So we spent the whole fight using the clutch claw and our attacks on his wings to break him as fast as possible so we could get more opportunities to hit him. And it made a huge difference.
Yeah, and it was a great like kind of experience of just like because I think we fought that monster 4 times in total.
Yeah.
And every time we were learning something a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more about that monster. It's like, oh, here's all of his movesets. Oh, when we broke his wings, he immediately started falling down. That's huge for us. And it just got more and more progressively like, here's what our battle plan is, here's what we need to do, and here's what we need to like bring into the fight and what we need to think about for the fight.
And that goes into every fight, even the ones where it's like, we don't like. There was one where it's like, Joe, this monster's from an old game. I'm pretty sure he has bleed. Bring bleed things. And what do you know? That saved us because the fight we almost lost completely, but we clutched it out in the first try. But just because we came prepared, we learned his moveset on the go, and it's like it's just such a good gameplay loop. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, and it feels satisfying, and everything scales really well too. Like there are still times where we'll do like high rank or like lower monsters, and you're just like, this thing will kill me if I'm not paying attention, just being dumb.
Yeah, you can get stunned if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, which is incredibly satisfying and really like it just makes every time you do a fight very engaging, which can be exhausting from time to time when you need to like grind out those materials that you need. But the thing is, like, I love the gameplay so much in the game that it really doesn't bother me.
That's what brings it all together, really. Like the gameplay, you have 14 weapons in this game, and they're all a class on their own. You have to learn every move of that weapon. All the weapons are like chunky and slow in their own way, so you have to really think about your positioning and your movement, and it's really rewarding. And then you watch people who are really good with the weapon just dance around the monster effortlessly, and you're like, there is such a high skill ceiling somehow still.
Yeah, and then you go into a fight, and then you shoot the flare off, and then 2 guys come in with heavy bow guns and just shotgun shell the monster out the sky the entire time.
Oh man, if you shoot the shell to get friends around, and 2 Japanese dudes show up, you're in good hands.
But that being said, Iceborne does have one thing that drives me insane about World still, and that is the cutscenes that are involved in every single one of the story missions.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing about the game, and honestly, I think is the number one thing that kills a lot of people that are trying to get into Monster Hunter World, because there's already like a large amount of material you have to get through to catch up. And the fact being that you have to wait for the cutscene to end before your friends can join you is incredibly infuriating.
Yeah.
It's
it's especially bad because some of the missions are expeditions. So to get friends to join you, because we're carrying one of our friends, Austin, right now, through the low ranks. And some of the missions, he has to get to the cutscene, exit the mission, restart the mission, and then we can join.
And that's all so much loading time, especially on PS4.
And it's not that bad. It's not bad at all for non-story missions because they don't have cutscenes. You just jump in and you're having a great time, and that's most of the game. But you do have to get through those story missions to open up all those other missions that don't have that issue.
Yeah,
so.
It's my biggest gripe about the game, and it's a big kind of like conversation that I don't know which one you'd rather have, Willard, because in previous games they would just be like, oh, you unlock 3-star quests in low rank, and they would just give you a list of quests you could do, and there was a specific list of quests you had to complete, and sometimes in certain orders, in order for you to unlock the next rank of quest or the urgent quests or whatever.
The new system is way better because you had no idea what the urgent quests are. You had to Google them every time. This time, it's very clear the quest you have to do to progress. And on the plus side, people can join you mid-mission, so that's a big plus. It's just the cutscene thing. It's such an inconvenience.
It's so bad. I feel like there was one more thing about World. The only other thing I could think about World is just like it has some network stability issues sometimes when it comes to connecting people, but that's been largely fixed up through its own patches. The new area is great. I didn't like it at first, the layout, and then after like sitting around and running through it a lot more, I was like, oh, I like this the way it's laid out a lot more.
Yeah.
And they've overall fix the Gathering Hub issue. It's a lot easier to get to the Gathering Hub now and make that more of a local hub, especially when you open it up to everyone, having
Yeah.
everything you need there.
There's one thing that's not there. Actually, two if you count the gambling, which is important.
What's the other thing?
You can't do what the fuck was it? Trail Rider.
Oh,
in
okay.
the Gathering Hub.
That's true. Yeah, that does suck.
But I'd never do Trail Rider anyways. So
Well, I think you can go to your rooms from the Gathering Hub and do Tail Riders.
can you? You can
Wait.
definitely go to the Armory now.
Yeah.
Anyways, Monster Hunter World continues to be the top game of 2019, even though it came out in 2018.
Uh-huh.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun discussing Game of the Year at the end of the year because there's
Yeah.
way too many contenders, and this is somehow still one, and it's just an expansion.
Mm-hmm. Like
Game of the Year, Kirby Clash something. I don't even
You know
remember
for
the name.
okay, I know you know for a fucking fact.
No, it's not that good.
It doesn't break top 20,
No, it doesn't.
but it's a cute game.
it's just Monster Hunter but Kirby.
Honestly,
Except it controls really weird, but it's very cute. That's I think that's good for World. I'm excited to play this right after the podcast. That's what I'm waiting for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. So, the time has come. As you guys will recall, early on in this podcast, I talked about a show with you guys
oh yeah,
Terrace House.
called Terrace House. And it was because I had just finished watching Terrace House with my friend who we always watch Terrace House together. But that was the last we had for a while because when a Terrace House season ends, it ends in Japan, and then Japan needs to start filming it, the new season, and then after a while it gets here, and only freakazoids who get VPNs just to watch the weekly episodes in Japan have watched all the episodes. They're not freakazoids. That's one of our most popular videos, so thank you all, Terrace House community. But me and my friend always wait for the Netflix release internationally, and it came out last week, and we started watching it this week, and it was super fun. We watched 3 of the 8 episodes I think that are out.
There's only 8?
So what they do is they do parts. So every few months, a batch of like 8 episodes will drop. It's 8 or 12. I want to say it's 8. And they're all like 40 minutes to an hour long. So you're getting like your fix in when they drop. So this season of Terrace House is back in Tokyo, and I really like the cast. So you guys should really watch the show. When it starts, like you get this like tense first episode where everyone's meeting each other. As I've explained before, this is a show where people come and go at any point. So like, oh, I've been here for a month and I did what I wanted to do, which was like start my fashion line. I came here to set that goal. It's done. I got a boyfriend now too as a bonus. I'm gonna leave, whatever. And then they leave Terrace House, and then someone else replaces them.
and then episode 2 they all start doing it.
No, that takes a long ass time.
Damn, Japanese.
Interesting thing though, as soon as you're dating someone in Japan, you're just immediately boning the next day. So like, it's the shyest lead up to where they won't touch each other for a long time, and then just when that flip is switched, where it's like, oh, we're official now, they're just fucking at it. Crazy. The shyest people just gone. Really interesting cultural change.
Bunch of rabbits.
So as I explained, people usually leave, but that first episode, it's like you're getting your initial 6, and they're walking into the house one by one. So you get these really tense conversations of like the first few talking to each other, trying to find a way to fill up time until the rest of the people can get there. This season, all the people are really talkative. They're really nice. They immediately they have a really good group dynamic. One of the girls there this season is the best girl in the history of Terrace House. She's best girl.
Best girl.
Robin?
Her name? No, she's not Robin. She's Kaori. She's super cute. She was an IT worker, like a programmer for a long time.
Attacked.
And then she became an artist afterwards, and she makes really cool art.
It's neat.
You got some interesting boys as well. You got a boy who gets really shy when he talks to girls, and he's always like, his face turns red, but the panel of like commentators thinks like he's playing people, and I just don't see it. There's interactions in the show where me and my friend will go like, man, that was really fucking weird, and then the judges will come in and like, oh, that was so cute and brave of him to do that. Like last season, there's this thing where like a guy takes a girl out on a date, and then like they're just kind of standing there, and then he's gonna go in for the kiss, which is already a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And to do it, like she's not kind of cooperating, so he grabs her neck and like twists it
What the fuck?
to his direction to get the
Fucking
kiss.
psycho.
And then like the panelists are like, "Oh
Whoa.
my god, that was so manly and brave of him." And me and my friend are like, "What the fuck?"
I guess it's a cultural thing. I don't know.
Or like dates that go terribly, and it's so awkward. But the two people are like just like lustfully attracted to each other, so like they still get together anyways.
Must.
And the judges are like, "Oh man, that was a cute date." So far this season hasn't had many times where we've really disagreed with the judges. An interesting thing that happened is like the show can become really romantic at times where it's like, oh, I'm here to find my true love, and one of the people this season is like he's here to find a wife. He's 31, so he's a lot older than a lot of the cast. Like the next oldest is 28.
Oh god.
And the youngest is like 20. Yeah, just 20. So like there's a range there. He's there to find a wife, but like there's people in the house who are here just for like for a change in life. So
Yeah,
there's
get away from it all.
yeah, and I feel like that's a good. I really like when there's portions of that in the show where it's really mundane. Like there's people there was this big argument on like this person who doesn't want to have one thing they're good at. They're kind of like, I related to them where they kind of like being good at multiple things. They're like following multiple passions. But this girl who's like the more problematic of the group right now, she's like, but it sounds really lazy to like not commit to one thing. Our society rewards committing to one thing. And then she like brings in two of the other housemates into it. And like one of them is that artist girl where she's like, well, I kind of did what he's saying, where like I committed to one thing, but eventually I find out that my passion was something else. And
She's the main villain.
not really. It was just like a cool clash of like Western versus Eastern philosophies, where I felt like the girl was like, from what I've seen, a lot more on the side of what most of Japan's society would be like, but the guy was more of a Western boy. That being said, they like got on each other's nerves, and he's like, people who have your mindset are gonna die out.
Jesus.
It got tense, and it's called the tempura incident.
Ooh, it has a name.
Because he's like, I like tempura, but I wouldn't want to eat tempura every day of my life. You know what I mean? It's like every time there's like a big scenario in the show, it's a blank incident,
That's
like
funny.
the meat incident or the Costco incident or the Risako incident, and we love Terrace House. I look forward to talking about it more whenever I do finish the season. We still got, thankfully, like 5 episodes to go. And every time we finish a part, it's just really sad, and then we have to wait for the next one to come out. Once it started, the wait is less long, but it's still there.
How many seasons are there?
There's currently, so there are 3 finished seasons of Terrace House, but on Netflix there's only 2 of them because the first one is Japan only.
Oh,
And for half of the season, it didn't have the panelists where, like, they watch the show and commentate, and they're, like, half the fun is how they, like, make fun of people or, like, root people on and, like, get their biases in. So, like, that one's allegedly really good, but because of that whole, like, half of it isn't what I expect out of the show, I haven't gone back to it. I lied, there's 4, because in Netflix, there's one in Tokyo, one in Hawaii, and then one in, Jesus Christ, I don't know how to say it. It's like Kawazor. Not even. Nope. I'm gonna eject myself from this. It starts with a K. It's in the mountain area. It's my favorite season. It was the most recent one. This one's back in Tokyo. It's just called Tokyo 2019.
It's called Titans in Tokyo.
Yeah, and so far it's really good. Uh, any of them are a good one to start on, except the Hawaii one, because that one's distinctly different from the other 4 that you could find. And they all have really good characters, and they all have characters that you love to hate. And there's just a lot of fun stuff. And like right now, I'm hoping that my girl Risako gets with the guy who's trying to get married, because they're both artists and like they really cheer each other on.
Oh.
But then like there's the other girl who I don't like is like, oh, teach me guitar, and I was like, oh man, he looks so fucking bored. But then later they're like, oh, he looked happy for once, and all the panelists are like, oh, he looked so happy. So I'm like, what the fuck do I know, right? So it's a great time. Just go watch Terrace House. It's a fantastic show. I will talk about it more in the future. Real quick, I also wanted to talk.
Joe, did you just call yourself a bear?
What?
Did you call yourself a bear?
I didn't say anything.
We weren't recording. Now everyone's gonna think I'm crazy.
Bradley, what the fuck are you talking about?
Say your thing.
No, that was really rude of you to just accuse Joe of saying things as I was talking.
Yeah, whatever.
Just you just said it again.
What are you talking about, Willer?
I mean, that was Pennywise. I watched it 2. Actually, I watched it 1 and 2 last week because I hadn't seen 1, and I got invited to watch 2, so I was like, okay, I gotta watch 1 as well. It was on my to-watch list. The It franchise is interesting to me because
all 2 movies of this franchise.
The 2 movies of this massive I mean, they makes a lot of money, so it's franchise worthy. There might I could see them doing a chapter 3, which brand new original stuff.
No, they're not gonna do that.
Oh, that's where you're wrong, buddy.
That's where they do the middle part.
No, that'd be terrible. That actually could not work. Maybe if with a new cast. Anyways, these It movies, I don't find them scary at all. In fact, It 2, everyone was cracking up the whole time.
Funny movies.
It's a very comedic movie. I watched It 1 by myself, so I wasn't cracking up. I was just kind of watching. But what it does have is really, really strong imagery, with the exceptions of when it has really dumb CGI. But aside of those times, it has really good imagery. Where like this just looks disturbing. Like from the first movie, for example, I'm gonna go spoiler free here because Bradley has a really big date this weekend to watch It 2. So I don't want to spoil it. But for the first one, like an example would be It opening his mouth to like hypnotize Bev with the deadlights, or when he dances and his head is like still, but like his body is moving, or just fucking anytime he has a balloon, it looks really cool. Like just all these cool shots. There's a lot of weird tilted angles and like cool zoom ins into like the creepy areas. It's just visually speaking, they're really cool movies. It 1, I really like the kids for the most part. Really good actors, all of them. The only ones I didn't care for a few of them. Like for example, Mike doesn't exist in It 1. Like he is not a character. He's just there.
Yeah,
right?
And that really made me sad because a lot of people were really angry about that because he's actually like supposed to be really central to the story, especially if you saw the like the old school It or It books. I think they gave a lot of his like roles in the story to other characters,
which is interesting. At least I will say, like in part 2, he is way more important. I really liked him in part 2.
Sweet.
The character I really don't like, and I've never seen someone share this opinion, is I can't stand Richie.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
I don't like that kind of person. He's fucking annoying. He's cracking jokes when it's supposed to be serious. He's immature, and they're kids, right? Like that's the point. I just bringing it on to 2. In 2, every character is just the same fucking person. they've barely changed, and you get just a little glimpse of how their lives are different in the beginning, and then they get back to Derry, and it's just like Richie never changed. He always cracked inappropriate jokes. He was always an asshole. How he made friends like outside of his childhood group, I would never know. If Richie,
it's because everyone likes him, except for Willard. That's how we made friends.
If Richie was a child today, he would be doing Fortnite memes every sentence. Like, I don't like people whose personalities are jokes, and that's because there's a reason for that. Like, he's a character who's insecure, but you don't really get to see that in It 1. You get to see more of it in It 2, where it worked better. He's a much better character in It 2, but in It 2, I can't fucking stand him because on a narrative role, he ruins the movie.
Everyone turned off our podcast.
No, they didn't. I'm going to talk about the good characters right after this. Like, anytime there could be a scary scene in It 2, Richie will crack a joke. And way more than even in the first movie. And it's just... You're killing the tone. You're making this more of an adventure movie than it needs to be.
Well, it's supposed to be an adventure story, right?
Well, it's marketed also as a big horror movie, so it's supposed to be both. And it fails to be one of them, in my opinion. The characters are really like, in the first movie, my favorite character is probably Eddie. I thought he had a really fun arc. He's really funny. He's got really good mannerisms. The actor they got him for 2 is spot on the mannerisms. But I feel like they write him terribly in Act 2, where he's just a bumbling comic relief. But then you get characters like, I think Bill is the best character probably in both of the movies.
Oh, I think he's always been my favorite.
I mean, of course, they go a long way to like write him to be the best character. Him and Bev, right? They're like 2 of my favorites because they give them so much to work with. I feel like it also really shows in the second one. Like, they're both still like some of the more interesting characters. With that being said, like, all the characters have really good dynamics with each other. Like, that's I think everyone's favorite part of the movie is just the characters kind of just shooting the shit, kind of picking on each other, making jokes, showing affection. The movies have a really positive outlook on friendship, which I really like. It's different, for a scary movie to be like kind of positive that way. It's just refreshing. I'd probably give them both a 3 out of 5, which is not bad at all. They just they're good movies. One has like a better atmosphere. It's tenser the whole way through, but I think 2 has a better plot, even though it's like a little more crazy. Pennywise is the kind of character who I think gets scarier when you know more about him. There's some characters where it's like, oh, the more mysterious they are, the scarier they are. But I feel like putting into context what it truly is, like, is more terrifying than anything, and exploring that I thought was really interesting. So they kind of even out to me as far as scoring goes. But yeah, that's what I have on the It's good movies. Definitely check them out. I think a lot of people will enjoy them. I feel like the second one is less enjoyed overall than the first, from what I saw from like the reviews and the discussions. But I also saw a lot of people who really like it.
I know at least for the OG the general opinion is that people like the kid half of the story more.
Part of that must be.
We'll see if it goes like that for this too.
I think part of that must be because kids are more vulnerable and scared. But adults, they can be braver, So from that lens, I feel like things can be kind of twisted. It also doesn't help that there was some weird scares in this one where it's like, that was weird. Also, the whole like middle half of the movie really drags on. But like the beginning and ends are fairly strong, so that makes up for it. But I feel like to make up for that, I feel like the way it should be structured is the first one's the scary one because it's children and they're getting traumatized. And I would have really, really liked to see the second one dive into more psychological stuff. Like I really want to see how that trauma really fucked up these adults, and you only get a little bit of that. But I feel like that's where you would go with that kind of story, right? Like you get trauma and fear, and then what it's like to live after the fact, which is what I really like about a TV show called The Haunting on House Hill, because that show is a show about people after the haunting.
Yeah, I heard
So
that was like an amazing show, and that's like a really just good premise that I don't think has been done outside of that, where it's like show people like after the tragedy,
it's,
you know?
it's a show where you get flashbacks to it, so you still get your It Part 1 scares, but like the big core of the character writing is like how fucked up these people are in their own unique ways because of their past trauma. And maybe it's because this is a slave to the book, right? Maybe the book just doesn't have those themes as strong. It's a very straight continuation, and the book interlaces the story, so it's more like this is how the kids got scared and this is how the adults got scared, and that's kind of how I see it. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it, Bradley, as this is a big event for you.
Oh, I will.
Oh, you will.
Oh.
I can't wait to hear about it on the next Roundabout cast.
Get ready for the actual It review next week.
I mean, say what you will. I won't even defend myself. Hello.
Welcome to
Yeah,
Barry
welcome.
Cast.
I was about to say that, Bradley. What the fuck?
Oh my god, we're on the same wavelength.
I'm
Mind
gonna call
meld.
Bill Hader right now and have him come shoot you.
Welcome to the Bill Hader cast, where I shit on Bill Hader's character.
We
for
are
the It
joined
portion.
by special guest Bill Hader. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, I'm the impressionist Bill Hader doing a poor Willer impression.
Bill Hader's not here. Everyone, you can turn off now.
What do you mean? Excuse me? Dude, that's really rude that you would talk like that to Bill Hader. Yeah, that's really rude. Okay, anyways.
You always do these gimmicks.
Anyways,
Anyway,
I'm gonna grab a hold of this mind train. I talked about Barry a few months ago. Actually, I had recently during my binge of Game of Thrones. I saw Barry was on HBO Go. I was like, oh, I'll throw this on while I fold some laundry, and ended up watching the entire series in about a day and a half, and was just really blown away about it. To give you a brief rundown of what what Barry is again, it's essentially just about Bill Hader plays a hitman who decides he doesn't want to be a hitman anymore and wants to take up acting instead. That's the general premise of the show.
man, they use it well.
Yeah, the big difference here is Bradley has now seen it, at least season 1.
Ta-da!
So we're gonna take some time to discuss that, spoiler free at first, then go into spoilers.
Let me lay down the rules here. I wanted to watch season 1 of Barry, but my computer that stores Barry in my legal HBO subscription that is only on that computer, cough cough, it exploded yesterday. Because my luck is actually -5. I've come to
I'm
realize.
actually very worried in 2 weeks when we go to Disney World.
I almost died the other day in the train tracks, but besides that, my luck just keeps getting better. I wanted to watch Barry, I wasn't able to. So what we're gonna do is Bradley's gonna give us like a spoiler-free review, and then I'm gonna step away. It's kind of weird when this happens. It's only really happened for like the Stephen King book that y'all read.
Yeah.
Because y'all's like things don't overlap as much as me and like without me.
Yeah. But Bradley and I don't get a lot of alone time. You gotta give us our own space.
Yeah, I was
So
glad we
that's-
have Barry.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you your alone time. I'll talk about Barry after you guys are done. I'll take the sloppy seconds or
Yeah.
thirds or fourths.
Yeah.
So Bradley, tell us a little bit about Barry.
Yeah.
As much as I can listen to.
So right off the bat, like before I even got into Barry, whenever Joe initially told us about it, I knew that it was going to be the next show on my list. Because like it's so ripe for character development where like you have this guy who, you know, he's like ex-military and he's a hitman, and you know, he gets introduced to acting, and a big part of acting is kind of letting yourself come out of your shell and learning more about yourself. And I was, before I even started the show, I was like, oh man, this is just going to be, you know, based on the premise alone, this is going to be a very character focused show. as opposed to just action, action, action. Um, so I was just really interested in it. And so and then in practice, when you actually get into the show, it's very true to that. We spent a lot of time looking at Barry, and exploring like what acting means to him and how acting basically gives you a visual for how he is feeling inside at any given moment. Um, and I think what really sold me on the show in the first few episodes,
Still
I
hate
think
it.
maybe even the first episode, they established very, very early on in the acting class this theme of acting is truth. And I think they say that many times throughout the show. Acting is truth. And if you want to be a good actor, you have to draw upon things that are true to you, things that have happened in your life. You need those real emotions. And so, one thing I've talked about before, I think, in relation to on our Discord, like in relation to Breaking Bad or some elements of One Piece, I've said that the more something has in common with Worm, obviously my favorite story, the more often they're like the more likely I am to like it. And a thing I really liked with Barry is that he gets this kind of really tragic positive reinforcement when he's doing acting, where the more he is in that traumatic headspace of thinking about people he's killed, people he's hurt, the more he does these things and thinks about these things, he is in a much more depressed and angry headspace, but he becomes a better actor. And then he gets this positive reinforcement where people tell him how good he did and how great he is at acting whenever he's like that. And
Ooh,
you
that
kind of,
sounds really good,
yeah,
actually.
and it's kind of incredible how they merge these two halves of his life. I love it.
Yeah, it's there's a great irony in it too, because like acting is about playing pretend or playing a character, and Barry has to essentially play a different character of himself whenever he's in the acting class, because he's really a hitman, um like for real, but he has to play as a regular schmo dude while he's in the acting class. There's a lot of layers to this show that I really appreciate. um there's a good assortment of side cast characters as well. uh and Bradley mentioned this for me previously, and I kind of have the same kind of like opinion as him. Their side stories aren't as interesting or as engaging as Barry's. They more or less serve as interruptions and or plot developments that will link back to Barry later.
Yeah, like anything that happens with I don't necessarily remember her name, the detective. Anything that
Boss.
Yeah, anything that happens with her, I think is purely valuable for advancing the plot. I don't at this point anyway, I don't necessarily care
Yeah.
about her character a whole lot, but I do think she was necessary for the plot to go the way it did.
Yeah, and then I feel like every character there isn't like wasted. I just don't think they're as nearly as like prominent or important as Barry is. Like it's not like a One Piece scenario where you can love every character and have feel like every character is a great backstory. It feels like Barry is surrounded by these characters with very human flaws and human conditions and human and like normal circumstances. But because he's in their lives now, he is interrupting them in some way, and they're like rebounding back to him, and he doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. And man, like any pretty much the most interesting thing to the show to me is Barry himself, which I guess you usually want your main character to be the most interesting part.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so interested, usually when I was looking at any character who was not Barry, I was just like, what does this character and what they're doing, how does that relate to Barry, and what is that going to do to advance him? And not all the characters do that. Some characters are just kind of there to be fun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but man, like Barry himself, just the premise of his character and the arc he goes through is just 5 out of 5 for me. I love it.
Especially just in like that first like season.
Oh yeah, like it's crazy, and we have another season to go, and I like it because I think at the end of season 1 we kind of have an idea of where we could be going with this character,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. I think, is there anything else spoiler free that you want to talk about? Because like there's just a lot that I want to discuss that just will require spoilers about what happens in the show, because there's a lot of like, the great thing about Barry is I feel like every episode is very meaningful and there's a very relevant thing that happens in every episode.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like my feet are being dragged along the entire time.
Yeah, I think that would do for the spoiler-free discussion. If we want to move into the spoiler discussion,
Yeah, feel free to kick me out whenever.
get
Okay.
out of here.
All right,
Wait.
call me when you.
Wait,
guys
you
are
can't
done.
leave, Willer, because you're recording.
Oh yeah.
No. Here's what I'm. No, hear me out. It's gonna stay on. I'm gonna touch my mouse pad periodically so it doesn't like go to sleep mode, which is why I drop out sometimes.
Okay.
Okay.
Call me when you're done. Okay, take your time. You can go as long as you
Okay.
want. I'll just be on my Switch and laptop and shit.
Okay.
Have
All right.
fun, kiddos.
Bye, Mom!
Better not be fucking talking shit about me.
Bye. Hey, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Did you bring the condoms?
Yeah, this is Bradley and Joe cast. Everyone, get comfortable.
Yeah. Well, this is the Harry Berry cast.
Harry Berry cast. There you
Perfect. That's an inside joke for only me and you.
go. No one else gets it. Everyone else leave. We're just gonna have inside jokes.
Okay, so real quick, you cut out, like, last I heard about you watching Barry, you cut out in the last 10 minutes. Did you ever watch the last 10 minutes?
Yeah, it was really sad last night. I was watching the last episode of Barry, and then internet cut out when I was 10 minutes from the end of the episode, and I was like, fuck!
Which is really important.
I know. Internet ended up coming back, and I was able to finish it, and holy shit, those were a really good last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I really think season 1 really culminates in those last 2 episodes of the season. Like, it really feels like, oh, these are why all these other characters are here in the show, and this is how they relate to the plot. Which it made me feel better about following all their different paths a little bit more, even as if they weren't as engaging as Barry's. But it's like, oh, I see where we were going now and how they ended up connecting.
Yeah, like, man, those last few minutes of season 1 are so tense because we've seen this journey that Barry goes on throughout the entire season, how he's trying to change his life to get all this murder behind him. And for a brief moment, we think he might have done it. He's an actor now. He's free of Fuchs.
He's got a girlfriend. He's got like a good father figure in his life that actually cares about him.
Yeah, and things are looking up, and we are on that teetering edge. Is he going to be able to just have a normal life now? And whenever the cards are on the table, and he's put in that tense situation where he has to decide what's best for himself.
Yeah.
We see that he's still capable of these things, and that's how we know, holy shit, we still have character development to do in season 2.
Yeah, so I feel like the big kind of like thing in season 1 for Barry and his character, and you can dispute me if you want, is Barry coming to a realization that he is an actual evil being. Like, I think that's what, to me, that's like his whole like arc, is coming to his realization of like, oh my god, I have actually hurt people in more ways than I could think of. Because like previously, like he was told he was killing bad guys, and these were just people that like were doing bad things, so he took them out. He didn't realize the ripple effect that it had on the other people in their lives, and he begins to realize that like, oh, like, I'm more than just killing somebody. I am destroying other people's lives by eliminating this person from their lives. And it really affects them in a huge way.
It's amazing because, like you said, like in the first episode or two, he does have that mindset of like, oh, well, it's okay, I'm killing the bad guys. And he
And
never
he's
really
like done. He's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's boring. I really just don't. It's not rubbing me right anymore. I'm just kind of want to walk away from it. That's like his first like feeling about it.
Yeah. And then as we go on, like each progressive person that he has to kill hurts him more and more. And yeah, I think one of the climaxes of this is when he has to kill Chris, and
that's such a good scene.
He just can't stop thinking about Chris's family, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go to her funeral," and it's tragic, really.
Yeah, and it's awful too, because like it's it's him also kind of having to like he has this like really kind of like shell on him that he doesn't even realize that he has that contains all these emotions and these feelings in. And then when he gets into this acting class, I'm like, no, you have to express your emotions to act. And he's like, okay, and he has become more vulnerable to the world around him. And when he does kill Chris, you can just see that it's like destroying him on the inside. And he gets to, and he's like he's in the taxi or whatever, going to the place, and it's destroying him. And then he has to go say his lines, and he's battling back and forth. And it's tragic because you realize he channels that energy into his performance, and you realize like how terrible it is to be Barry at that point.
Yeah, and it, it it's just crazy how he's able to take these things and, I guess, like they say in the show, use it for his performance. And like I said, it's like a really sad negative like reinforcement where, Sally's like, whatever your process was, you need to do that every time. And you just imagine how much it hurts Barry to hear that in that moment.
Yeah, it's awful. Also, we didn't mention this on the spoiler-free part, but Barry is also a comedy. Like, it's also very funny.
Yeah, it's a really funny show when it is funny.
Yeah.
And I rarely see a show that can balance serious moments and hilarious moments in the same amount. Because,
And
like,
especially like in so much depth too. Like there are extremely funny moments in the show and extremely like heartbreaking and dark moments in the show.
yeah, it's weird because, like, it'll be a really serious moment. And then, I don't know, like, he gets a text from Hank and it's hilarious. But I feel like
Emoji.
in a lot of other shows, that would like break the tension of the scene. We'd be like, oh, it's not a serious scene anymore. Now it's funny. But in Barry, they do it really well where it's really serious. And then we have like 3 seconds where we laugh. And I feel like we're able to just come right back to that serious mood. Like the funny bits never break us.
I think one of the better scenes of that, there's actually tons of them, but one of them that sticks out in that mind is the whole segment where they're at the kids gymnastics.
Oh, yeah.
And like it starts off with like NoHo Hank, who's one of the better written side characters, I would say, in terms
I
of
love
like
him. I love every line he has is just perfect.
yeah. He's very unique in that he's just like oh so weird. He's just like crazy. But like it starts off with him saying this like silly text with bitmojis, and then it's them at the gymnastics, and like Barry's a big shit. Like he's in like deep trouble. But that scene is also hilarious. At the same time, you're also like a little bit tense of like what's happening, what's going to happen between all four of them that are there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just uh so mine's the big thing about the show that kind of really and we already touched on it, I guess, was the Chris scene and that whole part. And the scene with Chris with them in the car is hugely important because it's the first time where Barry chooses to kill somebody not because it's his job but because of his own personal safety.
Yeah. And that and he himself realizes this, and
Yeah.
I think that's why he just crumbles after it.
Mm-hmm. It really is the moment where he has to or he like his like that barrier breaks between how he separates himself between like the man and the monster. Like this whole time he can say like, well, it's just the job I've been doing. I want to get out of the job. It's not actually me. I don't actually kill people. That's just the person that does this job. And as soon as that happens, he realizes that, oh no, this isn't my nature to do this thing.
Yeah. And
And
like it really is crazy like that because you get the idea that Barry might just be a guy who is maybe just thrust into the wrong situation because at heart this killer, even though he was able to do these things, that's not who he is. He wants to be a better man. But he, I think, just through the direction his life took and maybe influenced through Fuchs, put him in this situation.
so, one of the interesting things about the show too, and Bill Hader talked about it, was that especially during the second half of the show, you realize that it's very much Macbeth. That Fuchs is
Yes.
Lady Macbeth, and Barry is Macbeth. which is incredibly interesting comparison that I didn't realize until I actually, because when I was first watching it, I just skipped all the director commentaries or whatever because I was just like, I want to see the next episode. But I think that's a very apt description where like Fuchs is this character that's like a siren to these murders for him.
Yeah.
And it's a great dynamic, and it's really weird because you can go back and forth with Fuchs of thinking like, does he actually care about Barry, or is Barry just his like money ball, his like money maker, golden goose kind of thing? Because there's that scene like after like the car flips when they do the bum rush and everything, and he gets the call saying Barry's dead. That he breaks down. It's hard to tell whether or not he actually cares about Barry or he realizes that he's dead. Essentially, is it self-preservation or is it actual care?
Yeah, and whenever it's all on the line, um, he actually wanted Barry dead at some point, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's the point where I was able to finally firmly be like, maybe he just never really cared about Barry that way.
yeah, yeah. Season 2 really expands on that relationship between the two of them, just so you know, which I
Yeah.
think is a really good thing because I think that relationship is the most interesting relationship out of all the relationships Barry has with everyone else.
Yeah, we need to hit on it more.
We do for sure in the next season. And we talked about the very ending of the show with uh Detective Moss being killed, which I did not see coming like at all. I thought
Yeah,
she would
me
be a
too.
regular character that was kind of always going to be suspicious of Barry, and Barry was going to have to like work around it because he didn't want to kill um his father figure's girlfriend, basically. And when he does just kill her, you're just like, oh fuck.
Yeah, like I thought it was going to be kind of like an ongoing thing where she like progressively gets closer and closer to like having evidence that he really is this man, but she never gets quite there, and it's kind of like a chess game. But he really did take her out, and I think it, even though it was unexpected, I don't think it was like uncalled for or anything. I think it was the perfect way to end season one.
No, I think so too. And it adds that last bit of tension to like really sell to you that like Barry's never going to be safe, essentially.
Yeah,
Like his past is like connected to him, and it's latched onto him and it's stuck to him. And he's screwed. Like this is something he's always going to have to deal with and something he's going to continue working to deal with. The only person we haven't talked to about I feel is Sally, who is the weakest character of this season.
yeah, and I think you did say that she maybe gets more attention in season two.
Mm-hmm.
I my initial impression of Sally was I just really don't like this girl, and like there are characters in shows and books and movies where they might be a character I hate as a person, but like I love them as a character.
Right.
Um, Sally, I don't think was necessarily either. And I was really worried that I might just be missing what the show is trying to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
I tried Googling it. I tried Googling like Barry Sally, and the first several results were like Sally's the most hated woman on television. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not the only maybe I'm not the only person who feels this way.
Yeah.
But I feel like she's not hated on accident. I think the show must be trying to do something with her.
So Sally's a really big enigma. I'm watching season 2 again. Just like freshen myself up. I watched all of season 1 as well, and it's watching her. The big thing about Sally is that she seems like the bad sitcom kind of thing, or
Yeah.
like she feels like if you're watching like a bad sitcom about theater actors and she was the main character of this show, this is what she would be. Um, and I think she's supposed to kind of be our control group for Barry and his relationship to theater acting. That like Sally is the bread and butter like girl that moves to Hollywood, is a barista, is like trying out for all these different jobs and only gets these like schmucky jobs and whatever. And she needs a big break. Like she's our kind of like connection point to reality for us to Barry to like the theater group, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Season 2, I feel like she gets a lot better. She like very much in season 1, you like coming off about like she's manipulative. I don't like her. She's just kind of like she kind of sometimes felt forced. I feel like in season 2, there's a much better job of having her kind of be like this is the only person that like Barry is able to care for now, basically.
Yeah.
And like it's important for Barry's character that he has someone that is a personal goal essentially to be like, you know. I feel like that's what her purpose is Barry's like goalpost in terms of like I want to be to the point where I can be with this person and not have to worry about everything else.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's the best what can come out of. I still think she's the weakest character of the show, even through watching season 2. I think she's better, but I don't think she's as good as like NoHo Hank or Fuchs or um Kosanow. I think that's what his name is, the teacher.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she's but like season 1, her part definitely is to kind of be this like motivational force for Barry in the acting, both as a romantic interest and as a kind of like Barry thinks she's great at acting and wants to be like her, essentially.
Yeah. And I do think that we did need her in the show. And I think as like from the beginning to the end, she kind of progresses from being a good influence for Barry to a bad influence for Barry. Where the beginning he needed her, she is kind of what inspired him to go on this life, to become an actor. And in kind of his early state, she was very encouraging for him, even when he wasn't that great. And then kind of in the second half of the season, she kind of moves to this negative influence where interactions with her put him in this bad headspace where he's more likely to do these bad things.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of interesting how she's used as a motivator
Mm-hmm.
or demotivator for Barry.
Yeah, it's she really is like very much, especially like I feel like at the beginning of season 1 she sounded very selfless, and then by the end of season 1 you're like, oh, she's pretty selfish in what she's trying to obtain.
Yeah.
Like she needs Barry to do well so she can be recognized by this agent in the show floor or whatever in the theater, so she can then get on his agency or whatever and start getting gigs.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good way to show like the cutthroatness of Hollywood and really show like this is like kind of what's happening. This is what Barry's essentially ignoring because he has to deal with this rather than like having to deal with the drama of Hollywood. He has to deal with the drama of murdering people.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you want to talk about, Bradley?
I think one other thing that I really loved about the show I wanted to kind of talk about, I feel like there is kind of a wide selection of characters that fundamentally are Barry, but with one or two small components of their character changed. That just kind of give you a glimpse into what Barry could be or could have been. I think
like Taylor.
yeah, like a good example is Taylor. Like if I wanted to describe Barry, I would say he is a fundamentally good person, capable of both good and bad, and just kind of the roll of the dice where the way his life went, he ended up in the situation where he's doing bad things.
Yeah.
Taylor, on the other hand, is just a fundamentally a monster. He's a monstrous person. Unlike Barry, he did not have his life go that direction. He had a relatively normal life where he went to the military and then he left, and maybe he got in fights now and then. And so they're like a really stark contrast. In I think it just makes it all the more apparent that the kind of life Barry lived, being a hitman, that is not suited for him. It's suited for someone like Taylor who thrives in that environment. Barry does not thrive in that environment, even though he's good at it.
Yeah.
I think another character that is kind of like Barry with one component changed would be NoHo Hank, where
Interesting.
both of them kind of just the roll of the dice, maybe where they were born, the people they knew, the way their life went, they end up in these lives of crime. But NoHo Hank, I think, even though he can do these terrible things, I think he only does it because he is such a people's person he wants to be everyone's friend, and I don't think he is fundamentally a monster. I think he wants to be a good guy, and when everything's on the line, we see him reach out to Barry and want to save Barry because Barry is his friend, and I thought that was interesting.
And it's both interesting because uh, they they also, what's interesting about those two characters itself is that they both choose to stay in this criminal lifestyle. Like NoHo Hank,
Yeah,
after everything happens, like he could have just walked away. He'd been like, "Oh, well, okay, well, I'll go like start a bakery." Like I honestly thought he was gonna go like do his own shit, and like Barry would run into him and stuff like that. But he ends up joining the Bolivians
yeah.
instead.
He needs to find his thing. He needs to find his like Barry found acting. I think if NoHo Hank found something, he could be
Yeah.
happy doing that.
And
Um,
then on the opposite side, Taylor just was like, you know, he was like the your druggy, wants to do drugs, get a bunch of money, get
yeah,
chicks, like
he like in ordinary life that Barry and even I think NoHo Hank could be happy with. He hates it. He thrives on that violence. He wants to do this.
yeah. The one character I was going to bring up though was Chris.
Yeah,
Chris is like, if we're looking at like a four figure, where like Barry's a good person in the wrong circumstance, Taylor is a bad person in his correct circumstance, kind of thing.
yeah,
Chris is a good person that ended up in the right place where he's supposed to be. Like he went in the Marines, he was like he did his time there. He got a family, had a kid, is living a really great life. Like he's just like he's like, my life's great. I got a hot wife, I got kids, I got a good job. Like he is just living it, and it's basically everything Barry wants, even if he
yeah.
doesn't realize it. Because
And
we have these flashbacks. Sorry,
oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say like we have these like imaginations that Barry has of like him and Sally getting married and owning a house and having John Hamm over for a barbecue and them having dinner with their kids and talking to their kids and taking them to school. Like that's everything um that Chris has.
Yeah,
So when Barry has to kill Chris, it's even more like of a sting because Barry just basically said that I'm willing to kill this like side of me if it means I get to like still be like I'm if it saves me.
yeah. Chris was another one of those characters who I was like, he's Barry, but with this one fundamental personality trait changed. And
Yeah.
like when Chris is forced to kill someone, we just see him break down, and he just can't live with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Barry sees him not be able to live with it. And while I do think Barry's a fundamentally good person, and even Barry at this point realized that he is and wants to be a fundamentally good person, I think he feels guilty that he has never felt as he's never felt as guilty as Chris does after
Yeah.
killing someone.
I was gonna say it's more of like Chris is like that pure like good character,
Yeah.
and that's like who Barry thought he always was, basically.
Yeah. And
And
Barry
then
has to wonder
yeah,
if I've never felt the way he does after killing someone, am I actually a monster?
yeah,
Man,
that's I think that's the big thing.
it's
Um,
so crazy.
it's yeah. Anyways, the show's hilarious. We
Yeah.
didn't talk about the jokes because that's the worst thing you could possibly spoil.
Yeah.
Um, but no, if you're in for a good laugh, go watch Barry. If you're in for a very insightful and thoughtful thought about like what makes a good and bad person and your actions behind it, go watch Barry and The Good Place. If you want good laughs. So yeah. But I think that's all I had to talk about for season 1. I can't wait for season 2.
It was a good fucking show.
Yeah, season 2 has one of my favorite episodes of television ever, which probably will be like a baby episode for you in Breaking Bad. But like, there's an episode in there that I watched. I watched it 3 times because I was in awe of it, but also because it made me terrified. I had to stop watching it.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I don't know what your schedule is going to be like for finishing it up, but we'll talk about it when we get there. And
Yeah.
Will will probably say something at one point too.
Because like initially going into season one, this was like my trial run. I was like, I need to watch Joe's show because I want to kind of know more what he's into. So it was a trial run, and now that I finished it, I was like, this is a show that I would like to finish.
Yes. All right. Well, I guess we'll contact Willer now.
Yeah, let's see if we can get Willer back in here.
I call him, so I'm gonna call Willer on his phone.
Yeah, he didn't want us to call him. I heard a beep.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a doo doo doo.
Hello?
There he is.
Hi.
Man, that was one of my favorite talks I've done on the podcast.
Yeah.
That was a really good one.
Talks without me are great. Good to
They're great.
know.
No,
Yeah,
Barry
Right.
is a really dense show, like in the good way, not the dumb way. Like there's a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
I can't wait to jump in whenever,
Yeah, you'll be able to watch the show and then listen to our podcast and come talk to us on the podcast.
I finally have a reason to listen to the Roundabout cast. All right. Hey, Joe.
Heidi ho!
What you got for us?
Hi. So, yesterday, was it? Yes, yesterday, two things happened. Number one, new DLC for Total Warhammer came out.
Oh shit!
I love, but I'm not going to be talking about that today because I just feel like it would go over a lot of their heads. But it's great. You should buy it for sure if
Glad
you have
like it.
Yes, I really like it. 5 out of 5. Great expansion for the game. Only $10. But while I was playing that, because when you're playing this game, it's best if you have something else showing on the side because it takes a while for the game to load. I watched American Psycho, which I've heard many things about,
Me too.
but never watched.
Me too.
Stay away from me.
So, American Psycho stars Christian Bale. It's about Christian Bale's character, who is a high functioning psychopath, essentially. He's like a high executive in the corporate world. He's engaged to I guess an heiress of some sort, but he's also like having an affair with this other girl. Like he basically has like the millionaire's life.
So he's most rich 50-year-old white man.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
He's like
Kind
30.
of one of those things where you wonder, like, do I know someone like this? Do I know someone who's a psycho?
Yeah. But he's like 30 years old.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because when through the entirety of the movie, he's 100% aware that he's a psychopath and what he's doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly interesting. Bradley, have you seen this movie?
I only know about it through references, but I have read the premise, but I'm not going to pretend to know everything about it.
Yeah. This movie is really weird, like really, really weird. I enjoyed it. I would want to watch it again, but like I just feel like there's something about it that I just can't wrap my head around. It's a very abstract story where it feels like you're just more or less getting the glimpse in this small section of the psychopath's life, and there really isn't a great conclusion to the events that unfold at the end of the movie. And there's a lot to discuss about like what happens and what actually happens, what was all in his head and what wasn't all of his head. But like another good layer of that is that he is with these like high executives, and it truly is more of like these people are all the same, and you hate every single one of them, but we consider it normal for them to like act that way. And why is that okay, kind of thing? Because they're all talking about like cheating on their wives, like it's a normal thing, that that people are scum, peasants are like terrible beings, and it's a really interesting take about high society and like what we perceive, like what rich people perceive as normal, which I don't think is 100% true.
Of course.
But like it's just interesting to think about, like, are the people like? Is it okay for these people to act this way because they're at such a high position?
This reminds me of the show Mad Men, which I've tried to get into multiple times, but I always bounce off. But from what I understand, thematically, it has a lot of the same stuff going on.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not a lot to talk about without spoiling it. Like it's rated R, very sexually explicit, lots of blood and gore and swearing. Uh, but it was an
Ooh.
interesting movie that I watched, and I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad that I watched it with my door closed and my parents weren't around.
Um,
Oh, one of those movies.
you mentioned that the story is kind of weirdly structured in some way, and I think I had heard this kind of thing before, where I think one of the things that the story's most famous for is the last line of the book, and I don't know if it's the last line of the movie also, but the it's supposed to end like really abruptly without any clear indication of what is next, like what is going to happen next for the character or even the scene. But it's still supposed to be like a very famous moment.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's kind of like it. There's so like I don't want to spoil the ending if y'all want to watch it, but the ending itself brings up so many questions about like who Christian Bale's character actually is, and like what's the actual psychopathy that he has.
Yeah.
And
I do want to see that. It's in my to watch list.
yeah, it's on Netflix.
Ooh, that's a good. That's good.
Yeah, it's a long movie. I want to say it's like 2.5 hours long.
How come old movies are always like way longer than they should be?
Because
Maybe not
people
that they
don't have
should be,
attention spans anymore.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's because they don't have to fit 4 different movies in the franchise in 1 year, Willer.
It too was 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it still felt rushed.
Wow, that's impressive.
Alarming.
Anyways, I give American Psycho a 4 out of 5
Hey,
for the sheer point of that it's not a 5 out of 5 because I like not I wouldn't say necessarily straightforward stories, but stories that truly do have a beginning, middle, and an end. This movie doesn't have an end. It just is like and we're done. It's just kind of like imagine writing an entire like paper, a book report, critically analyzing it, and then not writing your conclusion statement. That's basically it.
that's the easiest part.
Yeah, you
Uh,
think?
this is cool because now looking at my list here, Joe's next movie that he's going to watch is Kill Bill 2 with me.
Oh fuck!
Oh fuck, he didn't even know. Crazy.
I didn't. He didn't even know. Well, I didn't know.
He didn't know. Good stuff, Joe.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, let's kill you off
Yeah,
of the podcast.
We're American.
I'd like to be Christian Bale.
Okay, we can do this. But first, Bradley, why don't you ceremoniously give us a question to send Joe off on?
Yeah. So this is something I was thinking about, and it was a question on my heart.
He's had this question for multiple days, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a thought out question right here.
So you had a good long day. You lay in bed. You go to sleep. It's a very comfortable sleep, but when you wake up in the morning, something's wrong. You're not in your bed. You're actually outside of your house, apartment, wherever you live. And you're like, oh well, that's weird. I'll just go inside. The door is locked, and you peek in the window, and there is a version of you, but this version of you looks like a me from the Nintendo Wii, and it's basically a me version of you, and you follow it as it goes through its day, and no one is able to tell the difference between this thing and you.
Oh, come on. He
It-
doesn't
it-
have arms.
It has basically taken over your life, and no one is able to see you, but they're able to see this real one, and it is able to see you. It's aware of you, and it's kind of nefarious. So you have this me that has taken over your life. What are you going to do about it?
Well, I guess I have a second player to play video games with because that's all I'm doing right now.
He's nefarious, though.
Is he nefarious? I guess he gets to be player
Bradley
one.
just
He
said
he
that.
knows exactly what he's doing. He knows he took over your life, and he is just loving it.
He's doing the me smile at you as he watches you suffer.
Yeah, and it's very scary.
I grab his hand and I
Okay.
hide it because it's detached, and that's my blackmail.
All right.
I have your fucking hand.
You can use the slider and make him like way heavier. Or
You didn't. If I had access to the slider, I'm gonna make him
Wait.
short and like weirdly proportioned, so I can kick him and punt him.
I'm gonna make his face look like a stormtrooper.
there you go.
I'm gonna give him a dick nose, and then he'll look just like me.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how I handle my me doppelganger.
I broker a deal with him where I have weekends and he has weekdays.
There you
No,
go.
but he doesn't care. But maybe that's the storyline, right? He's like, haha, I'm you now. And then he realizes how shitty that is. And then
Yeah,
he's like, okay,
It sucks.
I will trade off time being you then. And that's a win for both of us.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh.
All right, this could work out well. This could be a good story.
But it,
I give it about 15 chapters and jump, and then it gets canceled.
yeah.
Nice. That's too low. It's like a 30 chapter. So there's some gags there to be had.
Maybe. All right.
Oh, and then whenever you get to your climactic battle with him and you're fighting, it goes doo 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 doo.
Do you like 5 in Wii Sports?
Yeah.
Or
Wii
Wii
Boxing.
Sports Resort? We did the sword fighting.
Wii fencing.
Yeah.
Nice. Which of the three Mii's in Ultimate movesets does he
Oh
have?
yeah. Oh.
He's a brawler.
Okay.
Oh wait.
Okay, that's the
Our Mii's
worst
aren't
one.
tailored to us.
What's that?
What? Our Mii's aren't tailored to us.
I guess you can design his moveset like in Smash Bros.
I'm gonna get Sans to fight him.
Okay.
This would be great.
I'll just give them the. I'll give them all down B's.
Okay.
Which
That's
no side B's
not
are.
how that works, Joe. You gotta pick one of each.
No, no, no.
You've never fucking made a Mii.
I haven't.
All right, get out of here, Joe.
All right. Bye, gang.
Thank you for joining us. Bye bye.
Bye.
And then there were two.
I made my hat.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Take That, You Worm.
I almost forgot what we were called.
I never forget.
Never forget.
This week, I read chapters 13.8 through 14.2.
And man, big things going on.
This was a big stretch. Once upon a time, a young lad called Bradley told me that there was a Berserk eclipse moment for anyone that has read Berserk.
In terms of just kind of darkness level of the story.
I think it's safe to say I hit it.
Yeah, this is one of the like max darkness levels I think Worm reaches. It is pretty dire.
Is it weird that I think that's kind of a bummer? I kind of wanted like another one, like later down the line. But let's not jump.
There's plenty of horrible things that happen to people. Don't worry.
Great, because that's what Worm's all about. Let me do. So we're keeping up with the schedule of last week. That being said, as we're recording this, I still haven't posted that new episode, so we didn't get feedback on what people thought. So hey, you'll get 2 videos of this format before any feedback, which is fine. Basically, I'm gonna summarize all the chapters and then talk about the highlights for me. Which there's some overwhelming highlights this time.
Yeah, and man, I really liked the way we did the format last time. So, like you said, we don't know how anyone else likes it, but I really like it.
I certainly like it. So let's go through the quick summaries. 13.8 is just kind of a chapter where they track down Bonesaw as the battle is raging on. They also find Gru in this one. 13.9 is Bonesaw has captured all the heroes and is torturing Taylor, and Gru unlocks his stand.
Yes.
13.10 is Gru and Taylor's confrontation. Well, I don't know why I'm saying Gru and Taylor. I should probably say Brian and Taylor.
There you go.
13.A is an interlude with Pigo, I believe.
I think that's
At least that's how the We Got Worm guys say it.
I think that's I think it's like a that's like French, right?
Frenchish.
Yeah.
Uh, it's her thought, her point of view of all the current events and her future plans. 14.1 is kind of your usual regrouping chapter, but it kind of has more to deal with how are they going to interrogate Cherish for more information.
Yeah.
And finally, 14.2 is a fight against Siberian, which that's a big woof.
Yeah.
But let's jump to the most significant things here. There's one thing I didn't mention last time we talked about, and it's two things about Taylor. One, how she tells Sundancer to attack an area with civilians, because she's like, oh, they're already in danger anyways, was kind of her mindset there. That was kind of shocking. She doesn't really bat an eye to it either.
Yeah, I think we've kind of been making these stepping stones with Taylor where way back in the day, if the thought of even like not even killing, just harming civilians came up, she'd have been like, "No, we're not doing that. Fuck off." And everyone would be like, "Oh, come on."
Come
And
on, hurt him.
then we've kind of had this progression where, once she's hurt someone herself, it's easier for her to do it in the future.
Yeah,
And
and
then when
she started violent and has only really gotten more and more violent. I feel.
and then when it comes to the matter of death, that's always kind of been a scary thing, and it took a long time for us to even kind of get to that subject. But then in the merchant rave that she went to, she allows
Some
that
guy to die.
that man to die. She doesn't kill him herself, but she knows that he is not going to make it out, and she leaves anyway. And I think that was a big stepping stone.
And
Um,
this would probably be the next big logical
yeah,
conclusion. That and her being totally okay with killing Mannequin.
yeah,
At least they tried.
yeah.
Anyways.
She's been, I think, doing a lot of thinking about this in the Slaughterhouse 9 arc, where she's like, could I kill a member of the Slaughterhouse 9? And she's kind of had varying levels of okayness with it as they
We
do
talked
more.
about it last time where I think we both agreed that now she's pushed past the point where it's pretty clear that she thinks she can.
Yeah, and
In the
even
heat of the moment, I guess we'll have to see. But
and even if she wouldn't be able to, I think she is at the point where she is okay offloading that responsibility onto someone else. She's
absolutely, she's feeling no guilt towards that.
a building full of civilians, but I think her conscience would be more okay telling Sundancer, "Oh yeah, yeah, go ahead."
Yeah, yep, and asking them if they're willing to kill and stuff like that. Another point that's kind of adjacent to it is how she just beats the shit out of Cherish and just kicks her face multiple times. Just classic violent, just terrible Taylor behavior.
And I don't care as much because it's Cherish.
Yeah,
And,
that's true.
this moment was always a little comedic for me because she kicks her in the mouth and she's like, "Hope she reinforced your teeth," and Cherish is like, "Yeah, she did," and like I almost picture Ben Stiller saying it because I feel like that's a line he would have in a movie. Like, "Yeah, she did, bitch."
Ben Stiller will play the part of Cherish on my Netflix adaptation of Worm.
You heard it here first.
It's gonna be great. As soon as Wild Bow allows me,
Oh, it's in the works.
it's in the works.
I lied. It's in the works.
Let's talk about the first big topic I want to talk about. I thought the build up to finding Gru and his actual just state was very tense and just horrifying. He's basically flayed open and his organs and veins are strewn all over this they described it as like a large fridge like space.
Yeah, and like it's not even on, so it's hot and like wet in there. And
And just moving into the room is going to hurt him just because his like nervous system is just spread out like a web.
yeah,
Which Jesus fuck.
that entire description was really intense for me. And even before we get the description of it, I was already just put on edge because whenever they opened it, I think her words were, Brian was in there and he was alive, but then she follows that up with, I couldn't have been unhappier at that realization.
Yeah, yeah. It was the build up to it was really good.
And
I don't know if this is Eclipse level. It's hard to say. Eclipse was horrific for many people,
yeah. Um,
but
I
it's
think
close.
the most interesting thing going on here, while we're on this particular moment in time, is the other people, like Ballistic. It's assumed he just automatically assumes,
It's time to kill him
yeah, like, okay, we're putting him out of his misery. Like, he doesn't even ask her, can I put him out of his misery?
because, of
He's
course,
like, I'll make it quick. Like, we're obviously doing this. Uh,
also wrote this down. This was a big point for me.
and Taylor obviously is very emotional about this. She doesn't want to let him go. And from the outside, this does seem very maybe unreasonable on her part. And I realize this is a thing that people actually do in real life when they have a loved one who, I don't know, they might have been in very painful, intensive care in the hospital, and they're not necessarily going to get better. And it's hard for them to let them go, to let them pull the plug. And I think Taylor's in a similar headspace to that right now.
Yeah, she basically says she's willing to let him suffer if it means there's a chance that they can help him, which is potentially selfish, but also you can understand where she's coming from.
And
However, Gru is super not okay with this, as we'll find out later.
oh yeah,
Um, we could actually technically talk about this now because I feel like this is a good segue into the big conflict between them later in this section that I read.
I think it makes sense. It's kind of a good segue.
We'll double back in a second, but I found this really interesting. I feel like this has been building up for so long, and it hasn't been like super apparent, but we have noted like they debate a lot on their different views. But it's like kind of friendly debate. It's like they're not being aggressive towards each other, but they have clash views, and we've talked about it. And it really explodes. I think it's in 13.10 where he's just like he says quite a lot of things, but it basically boils down to I just hate how you're so headstrong because you can get yourself out of these situations and you just don't think of the consequences of it and it hurts all of us. And then he goes on to also accuse her of forcing these situations so she can seem more helpful, which to me was a big accusation. How do you feel? How I guess you know more than me, but how did you feel about that when like
Yeah.
he's making these kinds of accusations to her?
Yeah. So as far as like, the things he's saying about her and kind of that accusation, they always have kind of had differing philosophies on how they should tackle going into fights or situations like this. I think back in the days when the good old days when they would have their meetings about the crimes they're doing.
Gru would always say no, and then he'd be coerced into saying yes.
Yeah, he was always kind of the reserved one where unless he was 100% sure they would be okay, which you can never be 100% sure, he was like, we shouldn't do it. And Taylor was always the one who maybe she wanted to prove herself to them or maybe she actually wanted to do it. She was always like, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to go on the offensive. We're going to attack. So they had very differing philosophies here. And when we get to this moment, Gru is aware of this and he doesn't like it. He's like, this causes problems for people. Like, if you're always going to be going on the offensive, it's not always going to be the other people getting hurt. Sometimes it'll be us. And
Like now, and now I'm scarred for life.
yeah, and he
And
makes
Taylor's the one that pushed for this current plan, as far as he explains it.
and he says this was your plan that did this to me. And then she also has the rebuttal where she's like, I offered to be the one who got swapped out. Um, and I guess if we go back to Gru's accusation of maybe you're always doing these things, being aggressive to prove yourself, and on some subconscious level, I think that might be true about Taylor.
It's that
But at
that
the
really took me off guard. Yeah,
same time, I think this is just the kind of person she is. Is she is the offensive. She is the conflict-driven person. She
Or she became the offensive. She held it in for so long with her normal life, to where as soon as the story starts, she's just aggressive with her villain life. Like it's so like I don't particularly like Taylor, but I also felt kind of bad. Like, oh wow, I never saw her in this light, and I hope that's not true. Maybe in some conscious level, like you said, it could be, but I don't see her as quite that maybe manipulative or even smart enough to manipulate these people this well.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know if she's manipulating them, but I do think Taylor has realized that she thrives in these situations where she is on the offensive, and
Definitely, but I don't think it's like, oh, they'll need me because I'm good at it. It's honestly, the word escape comes up a lot early in the story. And the podcasts have helped me remember these things. But in my mind at least, it's always felt like this was her escape from her shitty bully life.
yeah,
Um,
if there's any element of this that is her wanting to prove herself, I think it's more subconscious than conscious.
yeah, yeah. So this was a really good talk. Let's double back now to, holy shit, this chapter 13.9.
Yeah,
This
holy
was a banger. Um, there's so much to talk about with this one. So it's the one where Bonesaw is torturing Taylor. She's explaining the passengers. It's the first name drop of the passengers. I was like, oh shit, I don't feel
yeah,
guilty for knowing this word anymore.
yeah,
And it's way earlier than I expected for some reason.
yeah. So, what's your kind of thought right now on the passengers? Like, what do you have any thoughts? Even I don't know.
So I do. She explains that, God, it's so fucking weird. There's like a creature that crawls into your brain. This is not verbatim, and it's kind of expanding the idea, but like basically something crawls into your brain, and once a trigger effect happens, it lodges itself into a particular part of the brain. They name it, um, and that is the control center of your powers.
Yeah,
What the fuck, man? That's so bizarre and interesting. And she's seen it happen. She's straight up forced people to go into trigger events, and she's seen it happen. So it's not like a thing where she's misjudging it. Like, what is this creature? Like, what the fuck?
yeah. The way whenever I read this particular chapter, I'm always reminded of before I had ever read this story. Sometimes I would look at stories like X-Men, and just because of the way I am, I don't think most people do this.
Oh
I
yeah,
would
you're
look at
very Bradley.
yeah, I would look at a power like maybe storms, where she can control the weather, she can make lightning, like mini tornadoes, depending on the version. And I would say to myself, like, how does her power know what weather is, or how does it decide which kinds of weather she can make, or how strong she can make this particular weather? Like, is she consciously going like, oh, I'm going to send the air here, it's going to make a tornado? um I always thought that on some level there has to be some kind of thinking behind the power that decides what can it make, what can it not make, how strong are the things it makes. And Bonesaw's kind of doing the same thing here, where she's like, even when you're not necessarily conscious, your power is making these decisions, your bugs are going places. I think Taylor noticed this at some point too. The second time she fought Lung, she had like told her bugs to start gathering these bags of money, and they kept doing it even when she wasn't thinking about it. So Bonesaw's kind of on this line of thinking where there is something that she calls the passenger, which does the actual thinking for the power, and this organ, so to speak, in
Yeah.
people's brains, that's kind of like their method to control it, where it's like, oh, I have a hand, and I'm sure there are neurons in the brain you fire that tell your hand to move. This organ of the brain is what signals your power to do stuff. But she makes it clear that this part of your brain does not give you the power. It just tells it what to do. She said you can just totally carve this entire area out of the brain and the power still works. They just don't control it. It becomes instinct.
Yeah, she had the idea of cutting it or altering it such that Taylor couldn't really control her bugs, but they were always attracted to her, for example. Um, Also, very specifically, it is not a natural part of your brain, I guess. Um, Unless your body has parasites or, say it with me, gang, worms
Ooh.
that grow these things inside of your body or something. If I had to guess, and just because this hasn't come up in the story at all, these are creatures from that second universe that exists. Maybe I have no idea. And if I had to make more guesses, uh, I'm guessing an Endbringer is if these things take over your whole body and not just that part of your brain, you maybe mutate into an Endbringer.
Ooh.
Something similar to that could be the explanation for case 53s or 52s, one of the cases.
You heard it here first.
Jesus Christ. It reminds me of the We Got Worm guys, where it's like Taylor and Rachel are going to be best friends, and then they haven't gotten to, at least as far as I've gotten, they haven't gotten to the part where she gets fucking shoved in foam. I can't wait for that.
But they love each other.
But yeah, sure. They totally will be besties, but it's gonna be a slow process. That's my guess. Yeah, I don't know, man. I still think Noelle is. I don't. The Endbringers were coming for Noelle. She's probably the Endbringer-esque. I don't know. These things didn't just appear. I don't know.
She could be one of these things you're talking about where it like mutates your body into an Endbringer.
Maybe you wouldn't say that if it was true. So I'm wrong. So
I'm just in your headspace.
yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah, that was a big deal. One thing that was really, really weird and interesting about this is when Taylor's left alone, like Bonesaw's fighting Pariah, who happened to be in the building or some shit. And she's thinking about it. She's like, oh, if I give my passenger more power, maybe I can get out of the situation. What's really weird about this is that she doesn't seem surprised at all at the revelation of the passenger. She rolls with it. She's like, oh, yeah, okay, maybe if I give my passenger more power, I can get out of this. It's not like a, what is a passenger? I guess that makes sense. Like, there's no rationale like that, unless I missed it.
Yeah, I think any other person would be like, oh my god, what the hell is she talking about? The kind of person Taylor is, I think to her, hearing this information, she's just like, oh, that's just another tool I can use.
Is that really it? I don't know if I like that. Like, I would have at least like a line or two of like, because that makes me think two things. She knows about them, but they seem like a rare find. Or she, like, subconsciously, it's like, you know, whenever you get a stand in JoJo's, you know how it works. Maybe subconsciously everyone knows that they're there all along, so it's not that surprising when they're spoken about or something. Maybe that'll be explained later.
Maybe she'll do some more thinking about her passenger.
She fucking better, because I really wanted that. Okay, more shit starts to go down. They're about to kill Aisha, right? And that's when we see Bill and Ted again, which is their names now, by the way.
Right.
Do you know who I'm speaking of?
I don't know who the fuck you're talking about.
Bill and Ted are our friendly intradimensional creatures.
Oh yeah. How'd you know their canon names?
Yeah, well, the wiki spoils everything, man.
Oh yeah, Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted. I know passengers have fucking names somehow. I don't remember any of them, but whatever. So, right. I theorized that Bill and Ted, when they first showed up, signified the meeting or like the firing of two nearby passengers. The last time it would happen, it was with Scrub. And it was like Taylor's passenger was talking to Scrub's passenger, and they were connecting in some sort of metaphysical way. This happened again, And this time I would suspect that it's Taylor and Brian's, because Brian's the one who went through his second trigger event here. Um, and it's like what I was driving while they were going through this, and I was just going like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" As like the reader is reading through these passages, because it is out of this world. They're traveling to Earth, but the description makes it seem like they're phasing in and out of multiple realities. And I can only assume that they're trying to find the Earth that Taylor currently lives in, because she or Brian are the ones calling out to them. I guess maybe that feeds into my these come out of a different Earth theory with the passengers. Like man, my head
It's
hurts.
funny. It's funny because this is like a thing where if you're reading the story for the first time, I think it's like intentionally cryptic enough to where you could never possibly know what is actually going on here. But once you do know what's going on here and have context, you're like, oh,
This all makes sense to you?
uh, for the most part.
What the fuck, man? Like, it's when it's traveling through all these multiple Earths, it's also phasing through multiple people. Like, I think, as I recall, it's like people who aren't related to Taylor or Brian, like just random ass people are showing up in this vision. Maybe they're not random. I don't know, man. Bill and Ted are the most interesting. They leave. Brian gets like 4 new abilities, yada yada. Burn Scar dies. So you know
Breaker.
what? You know what, Bradley? Someone died in Worm. I can
Yeah,
say
but
it.
she's barely a person, so.
She no. Well, yeah. You know what? The 9 don't count. I will still say, no good guy fucking dies in Worm, and they get into the most dangerous shit. So the fact Brian walked out of this makes my no one dies in Worm joke still pretty relevant. Because Jesus Christ, he was flaying open and just spread out like a spider web.
Yeah, I think the trick to the story is that no one actually dies. They just wish they would die.
Yeah, but I also want one of them to actually die. So we'll
Oh,
see what
well,
happens.
I don't know. We'll see if the genie will grant your wish.
You said that the last 7 discussions. No one's gonna die.
I said we'll see.
Yeah, we're still seeing. Um. So jumping on to Pigot's Pigos interlude. It was cool seeing Legend. I think it's the first time we really see him. I got no vibe out of him. He just seems like a hero, man. Is that fair to say?
I think he is. I think he is like the just classically good hero. I remember at some point I had heard that the members of the Triumvirate, which would be Legend, Alexandria, and Eidolon, if you were to combine the 3 of them, they're supposed to be Superman. Um, and I think Legend's component of that is like the truth, justice, and the American way component of
Okay.
Superman. And the other 2 are much more Superman's like powers. But yeah, Legend is like the classic heroic goody comic book character, which I
Is he
kind
the
of
one who
appreciate.
showed up during Endbringer, or was that Scion, which is not these 3? Which
I think all 3 of the Triumvirate were present.
okay. I just remember him shooting beams at people. It seemed like a really generic power. Is that
Uh,
him?
Legend can shoot lasers, and to be more specific, these lasers can do all kinds of things. I think he can independently control many different lasers at once. They can turn at right angles, go around curves. He can make them invisible. They could ignite things, freeze things, disintegrate things. They could be
Yeah,
explosive.
that's a lot of stuff.
He's very strong.
I'll take this aside and say Worm so far has a really interesting power system, and the trigger events are cool. Overall, I don't like a lot of Worm powers. There's so many components to them. Like that laser power is this really generic power that just can kind of do everything. And then I really don't like the Tinker power set in general. It depends though, because like Bakura makes bombs that can do anything, so it's kind of still like super generic. But then you got like Kid Win. Like, what the fuck does Kid Win do? He has a hoverboard that he made, and he
So
can theoretically make anything.
the general way they describe Tinkers in the story, I don't know if it's the most accurate to how it really works, because they say Tinkers have like one kind of technology they can make, but I think it's more accurate to say they have
A
like a method
specialty.
of working that works for
Uh,
them. Because, for example, Armsmaster, he can make a variety of things,
and they're
but
miniaturized.
his actual specialty is fitting more technology into one space than should be allowed to be there. So if someone else wanted to do the same thing our master made, it probably wouldn't be as mobile. Like Bakura, she can do a ton of different things, but her activation mechanism is always going to be a
An
bomb.
explosive. Yeah.
And I think Kid Wins is, I believe it's supposed to be modular equipment, where, for example, someone else, let's say Kidwin and someone else could both make like laser guns, but someone else might have to make four different guns if they wanted four different kinds of lasers. But
But he can
Kidwin
swap
could make,
out like power
yeah, he
cells
could
or
swap
something.
out like cartridges or turn a dial or something. So I think
Mm,
Tinkers is more accurate to say it's like their method of working or stuff like that.
I guess I like more gimmicky power sets or like more specific power sets in my stuff, or like weird stuff. Like there's a lot of powers that are just like I can do all sorts of things. Like you look at Glory Girl and stuff like that, or these Superman kind of people. But there's also some good ones, like Gru's new power, which is to absorb abilities through his darkness, is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so back to Pigo, she basically plans to do two bombing runs, one to kill the Nine and the second to kill the villains. And Legend is like, that's not okay. You're breaking the truce of heroes and villains. And she's like, well, I'm not a hero or a villain. I'm just kind of a government lady. Just wanted to point that out because I'm really excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah, she's very much in the mindset of two birds, one stone. And Legend, he is like the Boy Scout hero, and he is just like, no, we're not gonna do this. They're shitty people, maybe, but they're
But
helping.
we got rules to
Yeah,
this. Um, if I had to guess the trajectory of this, then I'm guessing because I've been wondering and I've been talking to you like, where does the story go from here? Because there's two more Endbringers, and there's Scion, who I suspect is like a Doctor Manhattan kind of potential future threat. Um, but then it's like in Cauldron, but then that's still not quite enough, right? So maybe because of this bombing run, the next arc then is a full-on assault against the heroes. That would be my guess. Um, that you can put that in your spreadsheet and snort it.
you heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Um, okay, the last. Oh man. Okay, I'll go through it fast. But 14.1 was I starred every point I wrote down. I only star points I really want to talk about, which means I wanted to talk about everything that I wrote down in this chapter because it was really
There you
good. Chapter ones are usually the most boring. I feel like of every arc. They're regrouping chapters, and there's a lot of Taylor involved, and not like interesting Taylor stuff, just kind of like regrouping Taylor. This one was a cool meetup between the Travelers and the Undersiders on how they should handle talking to Cherish. They can't let her manipulate them. They know she wants to. That's how she has fun in life. Um, they have this really interesting. Well, the first thing that I wrote of note, it's been a while since Alex done anything. As you recall, he's one of the most interesting characters for me.
Yeah,
He openly talks about like how he's raped people before, basically. Uh, and like they just kind of brush it off, like, oh, there goes that crazy Alec and his lack of emotions and his raping. I kind of wish someone would call him out on it, and it does happen later in this chapter. But I kind of wish it was someone who had morals of some sort. I just want him to maybe not call him out on it, but I really want someone to discuss it with him so I can just get more of both people's mindsets to that. Because Taylor kind of thinks of it a little bit, but it's really in the grand scheme of things and how many words are in the chapter. It's like kind of a passing thought. Like, oh yeah, I guess Alec would have done this.
And one thing I do kind of like about this moment and the cherished talk in general is that basically their little like 2 minute talk with her is her trying to grab what she believes would be the hardest hitting emotional thing she can think of and bouncing it off of them. And for everyone except Gru, um, her strategy doesn't really work. And the thing I kind of liked about Alex was she does bring up these horrible things he does, and at first he's kind of doing like the oh well you did it too, and
And you guys are worse, etc.
yeah, I think the reason it doesn't hit Regent anymore, and the reason I kind of like his reaction to it is that he is accepting that these are bad things he's done, and he doesn't pretend they're any less bad. He will say that he was young, but he could hide behind excuses like, "Oh, Dad made me do it," stuff like that. But he kind of says like, "I was a kid," and he doesn't necessarily say that he didn't enjoy those things. He's like, "Yeah, I mean, they were good," but he's not going to do them anymore.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about this is that for a lot of the bad things Taylor has done, she would probably try and take those excuses like, oh, I was doing this or I had to do it because of this. Alec isn't taking the easy road out of Dad made me do it. He's like, yeah, I did them, but I mean, I don't do that anymore.
I really wanted to talk about that. So there's two parts of that also. Um, when Cherish is like calling them out on everyone's weaknesses, I had a feeling, and Alec always does this. He always draws out information very calmly in these situations, right?
Yeah.
He does this interesting thing where he absorbs a lot of the blow, a lot of the time that Cherish has. He makes sure it's spent on him, but then as soon as she starts turning on Gru, he's very quickly like, "Hey, Cherish, you're running out of time." Or what's Cherish's real name? Like I think he uses her real name.
I think Cherry.
Cherry, you're running out of time here. You got to move on. So I found it interesting because it's like he's absorbing the blows to himself because he knows he can take it, but when she switches to the most vulnerable person on the team, he tries to hurry her up. So he kind of wastes her time to pick on people on himself as much as he can, and then tries to get her back to business as soon as she targets someone weaker.
That's a really good catch. I feel like he's smarter than a lot of people will give him credit for, and you're right. Like he knows that Brian probably isn't going to be able to handle this.
When he talked about the whole rape thing earlier on, it was more like, yeah, spending time with people, like it always feels good, like having body contact. And Taylor is like, oh, I guess this is his weird way of trying to like cheer us up or get us together or just like remind us of like a good thing. Which is he's very thoughtful this chapter. And it's you brought it up yourself, like he doesn't really show remorse for what he does, but he says he's not like that. He's like, I did those things. She's like, you did those things that you liked, but then he's like, no, you guys liked me doing that. And it's kind of showing this image of like, I've moved past that. And I had to think back to myself, and it's like, he did torture Shadowstalker, but compared to who he was in the past, and this was also like a rightful revenge, like as he's torturing Shadowstalker, he's very cold, but you get this sense that he's also kind of doing it for Taylor in like a small way. So I kind of believe him when he says he's not the same person. He's still like a terrible person, but he's turning into a better one a little bit, especially compared to who he was. At least that's how I like to see it.
I like it.
The last thing I want to bring up with this whole section is the whole gimmick of everyone take a page from this book, and the page relates to how bad your secret is. Very interesting things. One of the most interesting ones was I was like, okay, Regent or Alec is going to get the lowest one because he has no shame. He did the opposite. He took the third highest, I think, either second or third highest, because he didn't want to say those things to his teammates because he knew it would unnerve them. Not because he was shy, but he's like, oh, these guys are going to feel bad if they hear the actual graphic details of what I've done.
Yeah.
Really thoughtful of him. I am very sure that Trickster and Sundancer are the two highest.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
pretty sure that's what it was.
that or Tattletale, but I'm gonna say Trickster's definitely one of them. It's not Ballistic because he's not interesting enough.
Yeah,
I don't think Circus is here right now, right? You said he's just a mercenary, so he's not a factor. Um, I don't know if Ollie or Noel were here. I don't
no,
think they were. Yeah, so um, Taylor, she picked like 100 something, 150. No,
yeah,
no, it was. I don't
because I
remember.
she picked a somewhat high number, but not nearly as high as theirs, and I think
It wasn't the lowest. It was like maybe the fourth
yeah,
or
I think the secret she had in mind was I'm eventually maybe gonna have to betray Coil. So
yeah, 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 yeah. She thought about it. Is like, yeah, but if they find out, I can work around that for the like given the situation. Like she wasn't that worried about it, which I'm glad. In the
yeah,
grand scheme of things, I was like, people usually make a bigger deal out of their own problems, so I feel like in general the number should have skewed all a little bit higher. Um, but I'm very interested to see the order, and Tattletale kept all the pages so she can do her terrible sneaking and figuring out later.
yeah. You imagine she's like looking at the pages, and she's like, "Oh, I bet this was this person," and if it was, oh, this must be their secret.
Yeah, yeah. Lastly, Siberian's a furry. GG.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Bradley, you got anything that you want to talk about that I haven't talked about?
Um, Worm is JoJo's now. Everyone has stands.
There are more stands. There's like a 200% stand increase than last time we
Siberian has a
talked.
stand. Genesis has a stand. Shatterbird is Regent.
Orion has a stand.
Brian has a stand.
Okay.
Everyone has stands now.
Yes, very good. Region has the best stand.
Yeah.
God, that is a lot. Um, yeah, the chase with Siberian was really drawn out, man. You know how I am with worm action. It's hit or miss for me, and this was one of like the slightly more missy ones. It was still tense because she's chasing Panacea and biting her finger slowly, which is a really terrifying image. But it was a long chapter of that.
Yeah. This is one of those chapters where, because I'm me, I still tremendously enjoy it, but I think it could have been done faster, maybe.
Yeah, I'm halfway through 13.3 right now, and I feel like some of that could have been wrapped into the same chapter. But we're not gonna talk about that because I don't want to take any more of your lovely times.
Lovely times.
That's what we got for Worm. That was a good talk. I can't wait to find out more about Bill and Ted and their
Bill and
excellent adventures.
Next time on Take That You Worm.